Chrisean Rock just walked into another man's warehouse and openly threatened to send Deen to a coffin. Not a warning shot. Not a subtweet. A live stream, on camera, in his own building death threat, with a bar so unhinged the entire internet froze on the same syllable. Her exact words, quote unquote, "These hands is bisexual, bro." Chrisean Rock said that. Out loud. In AB's building. While Deen was standing feet away. And that was not even the worst part of what she said before she stormed off camera. I'm Kai. Welcome back to the channel. Smash that like button, share the video with somebody who thought Chrisean was calming down, and hit subscribe because this story is only going to get more chaotic from here. Alright, let's break this whole thing down. Because here is the setup, and you need the setup to understand how completely off the rails this thing went. On the subject of what AB and Deen have been building over the last few weeks, I have honestly been rooting for them. The boxing gym content, the training streams, the way AB has been pulling in real names, Zab Judah walked through the door, Ryan Garcia pulled up, Shane Mosley showed his face. This is not some clout-chasing carnival. This is a 4-time world champion sharing a real craft on camera, and for the first time in years, AB looks locked in, focused, and finally in a lane that actually matches who he is as a person. When AB is coaching, AB is a completely different animal. And Deen, love him or hate him, has been the perfect co-star for that content. The chemistry has been elite. The clips have been going viral for the right reasons. Then Chrisean Rock walked in. And I want to be honest with you before I get any deeper into this. I have been one of the loudest voices calling Chrisean out over the last couple of years. Where her son is concerned, the neglect has been documented on live camera by her own hand. I have said what I have said and I stand on it. But when she walked into AB's warehouse this week, she was not there to play. She had her gloves. She had her focus. She was drilling combinations. She was slipping punches. She was listening to the coaches. She got winded on the heavy bag the way anyone who has ever hit a heavy bag gets winded, because those little 20-second rounds feel like 20-minute rounds when you have never done it before. And she pushed through anyway. So credit where credit is due, she showed up to work. That part of the story was not the problem. The problem started roughly 40 minutes in, when the read on the room shifted. Because Deen, and I do not know if this was a bit, a troll, a clip farm, or a real emotion leaking through, Deen started acting some type of way. Little sideways comments. Little digs. Poking at her while she was in the middle of drills. And Chrisean, who is not exactly known for absorbing energy quietly, started firing back. At first the friction was already visible, but it looked playful. It looked like content. It looked like two loud personalities cooking on camera the way loud personalities cook on camera. Except it kept building. Chrisean asked to switch the music to gospel while she trained. She said, out of her own mouth, she wanted to praise Jesus while she worked out. That is a specific request. That is a spiritual request. And Deen, instead of just letting her have that little moment of peace inside a stranger's warehouse, immediately queued up a Blueface record. Her ex. The father of her child. The man tattooed on her jawline. With zero real justification, Deen picked the one song in the entire music library that was engineered to psychologically detonate her. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you her face changed in real time. She literally called it evil on camera, and honestly, from her point of view, it was. That is when the whole video pivots from a training stream to something darker. Because Chrisean, in front of AB, in front of the coaches, in front of a live chat of tens of thousands of people, sat down and started venting. And her venting was not incoherent. Her venting was surgical. She said Deen was giving her hater vibes. She said he was acting like a middle school boy. She used the phrase, small man tinker, and if you have ever heard a woman use that specific phrase toward a man on live stream, you already know that is a nuclear button. That is not an insult you throw around casually. That is an insult designed to end a friendship before it starts. And she aimed it directly at Deen, in his workplace, on his platform. But that was still just words. That was still the version of this story where everything could have cooled down. Because up until that point Chrisean was mostly making a point about disrespect, and honestly, based on the footage I watched, she was not wrong. If you fly 4 or 5 hours across the country to promote a legitimate boxing fight on somebody else's stream, and the co-host of that stream spends the entire day poking at you and clip chasing you, you would be irritated too. That is a fair emotional response. The problem is what came out of her mouth next. Because Chrisean did not just call Deen petty. She did not just call him unconfident. She stood in AB's warehouse and told the entire internet that if she had brought her brothers with her, they would have, and I am quoting her, hit him and his home. That is a threat. That is a named, specific, location-marked threat. And then she went further. She said that if Deen disrespected her one more time she would pop him in his mouth. And then came the bar of the year. The line that broke the timeline in half. Chrisean said, "These hands is bisexual, bro. Like anybody can get it, too." She was not joking. She was smiling, but she was not joking. And she doubled down. She said, "If you think he going, I'll go get some," and you already know the word that came after that, straight up. I don't play none of that, bro. I need everybody in the comments to sit with the weight of what actually just happened, because the internet has been turning this into a meme for 2 days straight and I do not think people are hearing the actual sentence. She is inside a man's business. She is on his stream. She is standing on his floor, wearing gloves he provided, drinking water from a cooler he paid for, and she is telling a live audience that she will go get somebody to handle him. Not a fistfight. Not a slap box. She said she will go get some. That is a Category 5 statement. That is the kind of statement that ends people. Because let me remind everybody watching, history is drenched in the blood of men who took a woman's threat as a joke and found out at 3 a.m. in a parking lot that it was never a joke. That is not a metaphor. That is documented. That has happened over and over and over again in this culture, and Chrisean, of all people, should know that better than anybody. And here is where I have to complicate the story for you, because if I only told you Chrisean's side I would be lying by omission. Deen was wrong too. Deen was clearly, visibly, obviously jealous of the attention AB was pouring into Chrisean's training. And that is genuinely wild, because 48 hours before Chrisean ever walked through the warehouse door, AB had 2 Hall of Fame caliber champions, Zab Judah and Shane Mosley, training Deen personally, one-on-one, on the pads, on the bag, on the ring. 2 legends. Plus a 4-time world champion in AB himself. Deen has been getting more elite coaching in 7 days than most amateurs get in 7 years. He had no ground to stand on when he started muttering about not getting his one-on-one. None. Zero. That was insecurity leaking through the seams of a bit, and everybody watching that stream could feel it. The read on the room was not subtle. So both of these people are wrong. That is the truth. Deen was wrong for being petty in his own house. Chrisean was wrong for weaponizing her brothers on somebody else's stream. And AB, honestly, was the only adult in the entire building, which is a sentence I never thought I would say out loud on this channel, but here we are in 2026 and Adrien Broner is the responsible one in the room. Now, let me sit on Deen for a second, because the part of this that people are underplaying is how transparent his behavior was. When she asked for gospel, he played Blueface. When she asked to be coached, he complained about not being coached. When she got attention from the trainers, he sulked in the corner and said, she just wants to yell. That is not neutral behavior. That is a pattern. And when a man behaves in a pattern like that toward a woman he barely knows, in a professional environment, that is a red flag that a lot of women in that chat instantly recognized. Because women have been watching men do exactly that dance in offices, in gyms, in studios, in classrooms, for their entire lives. The behavior was not new. It was just louder because it was on stream. But, and this is the part that separates a mature audience from a rage-bait audience, the correct response to that pettiness is not a death threat. It is not calling your brothers. It is not saying you will go get some. The correct response is to pack up, leave the warehouse, tell AB privately what happened, and let the grown men handle a grown situation. Chrisean did not do that. Chrisean escalated a middle school level jab into a felony adjacent statement, and she did it on camera, in his building, on his platform. That is not just petty back. That is not just clapback culture. That is a line most sensible people won't cross, and she blew right through it without blinking. And here is the part that keeps me up at night about this whole thing. Because Chrisean has been on a genuine glow-up arc lately. Signing with a legitimate promotion. Training with real coaches. Losing weight. Showing up on time to gyms. She has been visibly, publicly, credibly trying to change her trajectory. And in one afternoon, in one stream, in one 20-second monologue, she risked flushing all of that credibility down the drain because a man she barely knows played the wrong song. That is heartbreaking, honestly. Because the version of Chrisean that walked into that warehouse, gloves on, focused, drilling combinations, respecting AB, that Chrisean is a Chrisean the culture would actually root for. The Chrisean who left the warehouse, threatening a man on his own property, promising to send people, weaponizing the phrase, "these hands is bisexual," for the entire internet to screenshot forever, that Chrisean sabotages her own comeback in real time. And I have to keep it 100 with you, the internet is going to reward the second Chrisean. That is the sickness of the algorithm. The clips of her training, sweating, working hard, focusing, those got maybe 50,000 views. The clip of her threatening Deen has already crossed 12 million. That imbalance is exactly why so many of these celebrities keep choosing chaos over discipline. The chaos pays faster. The chaos boosts harder. The chaos trends. And every time Chrisean picks up a real skill, the internet rewards her more for picking a fight than for picking up a pair of gloves. Now let me answer the question everybody is asking in the chat. Was Deen actually jealous, or was he playing a character? My honest opinion, and I have watched every second of that 11-hour stream 3 times now, is that it started as a character and became real around the 4-hour mark. You can see it in his eyes when AB corrects his form in front of Chrisean. You can see it when the coaches gather around her and not him. You can see it when she gets the audience laughing at one of her jokes and he goes silent. That is not a bit anymore. That is a man realizing he is no longer the biggest personality in his own building. And instead of processing that privately, he processed it publicly, which is what men who are not emotionally regulated tend to do on camera. But even with all of that context, even granting Deen every ounce of insecurity you can grant a person, he did not put hands on her. He did not threaten her. He did not go get some. He played a Blueface song and rolled his eyes. That is petty. That is childish. That is not violent. And the threat of violence is not a proportional response to pettiness. Full stop. There is one more layer to this that nobody is talking about, and it is the AB layer. Because AB was in that warehouse the whole time. AB heard the threats. AB heard the "small man tinker" line. AB heard the "these hands is bisexual" line. And AB, and this is important, did nothing. He did not de-escalate. He did not pull Chrisean to the side. He did not defend Deen. He kept coaching. He kept smiling. He kept the stream running. And I understand why, a fight on stream is 100,000 new subscribers overnight, but there is a version of AB, the AB he has been trying to become on camera, that would have paused the whole thing, taken a breath, and said, "Not in my building." He did not do that. He let the clock run. And that decision is going to age poorly if this situation escalates outside the warehouse in the coming weeks. So where does this leave everybody? Chrisean has a fight coming up on the Zeus Network under X Rumble, and her promoters are already privately panicking because a woman threatening a man on stream is not the promotional angle they signed her for. Deen has a stream to run and a co-host relationship with AB to protect, and every clip that circulates makes him look smaller than he actually is. And AB, the man in the middle of all of it, has to decide what kind of gym he is running. Is this a coaching platform, or is this a chaos platform? Because you cannot be both. Not for long. My personal read, if you actually care what I think, is that Chrisean owes Deen a private apology, Deen owes Chrisean a private apology, and AB owes the audience a boundary. If none of those 3 things happen, this story does not end at a viral clip. This story ends at a lawsuit, a restraining order, or worse. That is not clickbait. That is what happens every single time a public threat gets treated like a punchline. The people laughing at the bisexual hands quote today are going to be the same people posting, "We should have seen the signs," in 3 months. Do not be that person. Take the threat seriously the first time. Drop your verdict in the comments. Was Chrisean out of pocket, was Deen the actual instigator, was AB the enabler, or was every single person in that warehouse equally at fault? I want to read every single take. Also, Because I know some of you are going to say I am too hard on Chrisean and too soft on Deen, go watch my next video where I break down every single time Deen has crossed a line on stream in the last 90 days, because there is a pattern there and it is worth mapping. Hit the follow on Instagram at Kai_covers for the behind the scenes clips that did not make the cut. And if you learned something from this breakdown, do me a favor and share it with one person in your group chat who thinks this stuff is just harmless streamer drama. It is not harmless. It never was. I'm out. Now let me stay on this AB layer for another beat, because the more I rewatch the footage the more his non-response bothers me. There is a moment right after Chrisean says the "get some" line where the camera briefly catches AB's face, and you can see him decide, in real time, not to intervene. He looks at the camera. He looks at Deen. He looks at Chrisean. And then he looks back at his phone. That micro-expression is the whole story of modern streamer culture in one single frame. Because AB knows, the same way every full-time streamer knows, that the moment he steps in and de-escalates, the clip dies. The virality dies. The subscriber count that day dies. And I am not saying he made a calculated financial decision, I am saying he made a habitual one. He has been rewarded for staying out of drama for so long that his default response, even when a threat is being uttered on his own floor, is to look away. That is a habit. And habits, especially profitable ones, are the hardest things in the world to break. On the subject of Chrisean's brothers, I want to go a little deeper here because the internet is treating that line like a throwaway. It was not. Chrisean has publicly named her brothers on stream before. Chrisean has publicly involved her brothers in disputes before. There is documented footage of her family showing up to public places to confront people she has beef with. So when Chrisean says, "If I came in with my brothers they would have hit him and his home," that is not an abstract hypothetical. That is a receipt she has cashed before. That is a pattern of behavior with a track record. And the fact that she said it inside another man's business, on his stream, with his logo in the background, that is a level of disrespect I genuinely have not seen on camera in a long time. And where Deen is concerned, I want to be fair to him one more time, because I have been hammering him for 11 minutes and he deserves a fair red too. Deen has been consistent about one thing his entire streamer career: he does not do fake. He does not pretend to like people he does not like. He does not perform politeness for the camera. And in a media environment where everybody is doing exactly that, there is something almost refreshing about a personality who refuses to fake it. The problem is that authenticity, when it is aimed at somebody who did not sign up to be the target, stops being authenticity and starts being aggression. Deen was aggressive with Chrisean before she was aggressive with him. That is the timeline. That is the order of events. And any breakdown of this situation that flips that order is dishonest. Now, in the lane of the actual boxing content, I want to give both of them props for one specific thing before I close this out. Both Chrisean and Deen, at multiple points in that 11-hour stream, took real coaching from real champions and applied it in real time. Deen took a Zab Judah instruction on footwork and immediately corrected his stance. Chrisean took an AB instruction on rolling and immediately started slipping cleaner. That is not nothing. That is not degeneracy content. That is actual skill acquisition happening on camera. And in a media landscape that rewards nothing but chaos, that is a rare and valuable thing. Which is exactly why the threat portion of this story is so heartbreaking. Because both of them were doing something legitimately good, and then one of them lit the whole afternoon on fire because a song hit her wrong. The last thing I want to say, and I want you to sit with this before you scroll to the next video, is that everybody in that warehouse is somebody's child. AB is somebody's son. Deen is somebody's son. Chrisean is somebody's mother. There is a real human being under every single one of these on-camera personas, and the culture we are building on YouTube and Kick and Twitch and every other platform is a culture where those human beings are increasingly being asked to perform their worst instincts for the algorithm. That is not sustainable. That is not healthy. And every time we, the audience, reward a threat clip with 12 million views and punish a coaching clip with 50,000, we are voting with our engagement for more threats and less coaching. So the next time you see Chrisean actually training, actually working, actually growing, share that clip too. Watch that clip too. Because if we only feed the algorithm the fire, all we are going to get back is smoke. Drop your verdict in the comments: Chrisean, Deen, AB, or all three. Share this breakdown with somebody who thought Chrisean was calming down. Follow me on Instagram at Kai_covers for the frames of this stream you have not seen anywhere else. And go watch my next video on Deen's 90-day pattern, because once you see that pattern you cannot unsee it. I'm out.